everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Kat, and this is Second Act Kat RN. The purpose of my channel is to help you figure out where you want to go in life at this point, whether you're an older retired nurse and you want to get started back into something, or whether you've been fired from a position, or if you just decided you wanted to try something different and wanted to venture out to a different discipline of nursing. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is my first nursing job. I graduated nursing school in 2012, and I was one of the oldest in my nursing class. So I kind of got a late start at things. I had been through a divorce and had wanted to make sure that I could support myself. So I went to nursing school. And my first job was at a small rural hospital, and they were kind of like a bare bones, kind of not up to date. They didn't have an electronic record system. They didn't have CNAs, so nurses were the CNAs. We had to chart everything by hand. We had to take care of the patients, answer the phones, change the patients, do the med passes. We had to do everything. It was so tedious because we didn't have a simplified way of keeping records. So that was probably a good thing because it bombarded me with having to multitask and having to do so many things at once to be able to take care of my patients. So maybe it was a good thing in the learning aspect, kind of plunge you into everything just neck deep to where you had to work your way out of it. So at that nursing job, I was bullied by a charge nurse, and it's like she had her sights on me. I was in the bullseye. And for whatever reason, I was her chosen one. And that made it very difficult because that was my very first nursing job, and it made me hate nursing. I just absolutely hated it. I thought, what have I done? I'm being bullied, I'm being singled out, and I had a difficult time with that. So I'm a take charge kind of person. I'm not a bossy person, but I'm a take charge person, so I don't need to be micromanaged. And this particular nurse was one to do that. She wanted to micromanage. She wanted to point her finger in my face and tell me what I was going to do. And if I was doing something she didn't like, she grabbed my arm and pulled me. So I endured this for so long. While I was there, I had a lot of other coworkers who had noticed it and who brought it to my attention, which was embarrassing. I mean, it was good in a way that other people saw what was going on, but it was very embarrassing because I couldn't control it. I couldn't do anything about it. I was the one she was making her life all about. So eventually I had enough and I gave my notice, and I went on to working at a hospice company. I thoroughly enjoyed hospice. So my first go around, I've worked with hospice 3 or so different times. So my first go around was with this hospice company, and I absolutely enjoyed it. It was so fulfilling. You bond with your patients. I was worried at first because I thought, how am I going to deal with losing patients? Because hospice, the nature is that the patients pass away. And I thought I would have a difficult time with that. But instead of having a difficult time, I learned to embrace death and embrace their journey on their way to their new beginning, I guess you could say. So I enjoyed that, and I ended up changing careers at one point. Early on, I wanted to get my nurse practitioner license. So I wanted to be trained in a lot of different areas so I would be well-rounded in the knowledge base that I had. So I eventually left the hospice position and went to home health. I worked part-time for a home health company, and I didn't care for that as much because we weren't paid per hour or salary. We were paid per visit. So if you went to see, let's say, a patient to admit them to home health, you would be paid a set fee for that admission plus mileage, but you weren't paid for your time that you traveled. So let's say you went 30 miles out or 20 miles out to do an admission and the patient wasn't home. They just decided to go somewhere and they didn't call. So I wouldn't get paid for my time, and obviously I didn't get paid for the admission because they weren't home. So I only made mileage, and that was very difficult to justify. So that was only part-time, and I decided I couldn't do that anymore. And I was becoming resentful, I think. So eventually, these are not in order, but eventually I did work at a dialysis clinic, and I enjoyed that except for the very early wee morning hours. I'm not an early morning person whatsoever. I can function. I can go to work for a job that begins very early in the morning, but I don't like it, and I'd rather not. So if I had my choice, I would not do that. I did enjoy that for a little bit, but as in nursing, every nursing job pretty much is short-staffed. You are short-staffed, you are overworked, you are responsible for an unbelievable number of tasks throughout the day, responsibilities. You just don't have time for all of those tasks. So at that dialysis position, I was in training and had not been properly trained at that point. I was trained by a patient care technician, so I was not being trained by another nurse. Because of that, there were things that the PCT could not train me on because she was not qualified. So one day I went in and they were short-staffed, so I was informed that management wanted me to take a section of patients, dialysis patients, and take over their care for my shift that day. I had refused to do that because I wasn't properly trained. I could see some things that could happen potentially, and I wasn't willing to take that risk because I earned my nursing license at an older age, and I was very protective of it. I wasn't wanting to gamble away my nursing license. And I encourage you all to do that as well. Think about that clearly before you jump into something and you're not fully trained. But this turned out that the management wanted to see me in the office because I had said, no, I'm not taking a section of patients. I'm not fully trained. I don't really know what I'm doing. And I was told by management that because I had worked in the ER at a prior job, I should know how to do this position. I should know how to give these medications. This is a little different. You're giving medications into their port or their fistula, not just an injection or an IV. It's a little bit different, and you're working with different medications. You're working with iron, a bunch of different high-risk drugs. So I had refused to do that because I wasn't trained correctly. So I was later told I would be sent out about 50 miles away, believe it or not, to be trained by someone that was a registered nurse that could train me appropriately. So I drove to that location for the first shift that week with a trainer. And the first day I followed the trainer. The second day I did hands-on with the trainer observing. The third day I was going to be doing things on my own with the trainer staying over to the side and just kind of observing. So on that third day, management came from the other office where I was based, and they came into this clinic to write me up because I hadn't been trained, because according to them, I should have been trained by now. And it made no sense because I was there for a couple of weeks of training, but on the very third day, I was written up, and I refused to sign it. Eventually, after that shift, I didn't go back. I had called out and told them I was quitting because I feel like they were very underhanded with how they handled that. So I went from that job to other, I guess, part-time positions at different hospitals. And I eventually ended up at a recovery center. This recovery center was for detoxing from drugs and alcohol, other issues as well, like mental disorders, eating disorders. They started seeing patients like with schizophrenia and other psychological issues, which we weren't trained for out there as well. But I enjoyed that job quite a bit. It just became dangerous because we had some dangerous patients. The last shift that I worked, I was almost hit by a professional wrestler, and I was also yelled at by a patient that had come in. He had been on a 7-day binge and was fired up. We had no males or security there. We were out in the country in a rural area. And we had access to police, but they were about 20 minutes away. And generally, if you called them, they didn't come for some reason. I don't know why. So it became dangerous. And that last day, that last shift that I worked, I had experienced, like I said, almost being hit. My hand almost was hit and busted by a professional wrestler. And I was also almost attacked by this guy that had been on a 7-day binge. So I couldn't go back to that job. It was dangerous, and I was risking my life. And ironically, shortly after I left, they had secured the nurses' station where patients could not get in there. And that was the problem to begin with. So that's why it was dangerous at the time that I was there. So after that job, I ended up working a few other little jobs and trying to kind of find my way to see what I wanted to do. And I ended up back at hospice, the same hospice company I started with, my first hospice job after nursing school. So I worked that job with hospice. I enjoyed that, but it ended up being literally 75 or more hours per week. And the mileage I was putting on my car was 700 and something miles over 2 weeks. And that just kept increasing. I'd be at one point in one county and I'd have to go to another point in the furthest county away. And then I'd have to be back over in this other county to do another admission. I was the admissions nurse, but I also was given a full caseload of patients to manage. So it was just overwhelming. The time involved was so overwhelming. I eventually left that job and went to a nursing job at a skilled nursing facility. I did work as a wound care nurse at that facility, and it was a part-time position because they were testing out a part-time wound care nurse with their full-time nurse. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. I could do wound care every day, all day long. No problem with it. I loved it. I loved doing wound vacs. I loved seeing improvement. You can see when you're taking care of a patient's wound, you can see progress. You should be able to see progress. I always saw progress. There might have been an occasion where the wound was so bad that, the patient ended up being terminal, but I enjoyed seeing the results of what I was doing. I was taking care of wounds and they were healing. That was amazing to me because I was improving the quality of life for patients. So I loved that, and I wanted it to be full-time, but this was a test position for part-time. So I was there a couple years as part-time. It would not go full-time. They weren't intending it to. They thought they might, but then they decided not to. So I had to find something that was full-time. I eventually, after another couple of jobs, I went back to that facility where I was a wound care nurse, and I worked as a nurse on the floor. So I was a med nurse, and all of you nurses out there that give medications, you're not just a med nurse. When they say med nurse or med nurse, you are actually the Wonder Woman. You are expected to be Wonder Woman or Wonder Man and you do everything. You're so overloaded with responsibilities that it's very difficult to get everything done in a day's time. When you're taking care of 30 to 40 patients, you are responsible for the well-being, the management, just the care for 30 to 40 patients in one day, at one time, in 12 hours. That is a difficult thing to do, and you eventually develop a routine or skills, a skill set to be able to accomplish all the things you need to get done in a day's time. You know, it was very difficult, but you managed to get a routine. It became rote, where you were just doing it out of habit because you knew your job so well. So I ended up working that position, and I thought, I will stay at this job until I can't walk anymore. We were on concrete, and you know, when you're working 12-hour shifts, it messes your feet up. So I literally thought I would be there until my feet just couldn't move anymore. Well, I ended up having a bad fall on a wet floor. So I'm going to leave that there for now. And the next video, I'm going to talk about that and what happened as a result of it. So I really would like for you guys to comment down below and let me know, what was your first job, your first nursing job? And then what was the trajectory? Like, did you work that job for many years? Did you change and go to something else because you were unhappy with it, or you wanted to try something different? What prompted you to either stick with that job or to change jobs? And where are you now? Are you with that new job? Are you still working the original job after nursing school? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And anyway, next time we'll talk about what happened after I fell, and we'll go forward from there to see what transpired. So I hope you guys like, share, and subscribe, and please leave me comments. I would love to read them, and I will see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.